Welcome back to the Local Business Report. I'm Marty Collins, and today we're speaking on law. Fortunately, we were able to get a hold of the leading authority in Utah on DUIs, and here with us today we have the law firm of Covey & Young out of Salt Lake City, and with us is Joseph Young. Welcome, Joseph.
Thank you, Marty. It's good to be here.
Well, glad to have you here. I know you've got a busy schedule, so we appreciate you taking time. I know a lot of people talk about DUIs and the advantages of having an attorney versus not, and the costs associated and the value. But what I want to talk about today, Joseph, with you is, can you give us some insight to how you guys approach cases and what's a good case and a bad case for you? And what are some of the things that you look at from your side of the fence?
Yeah, the first thing we do when we get a case is look how to get it dismissed. How do we make sure the case doesn't move forward and that our client doesn't end up with anything on his record? I know that a lot of attorneys that we deal with will start from trying to negotiate a better deal for the client, and that's what we sometimes do as well. But we want to get the case dismissed. We want you to live your life. And so what we do is look at each step of the stop and then of the case. And each step has a specific standard of proof that the police must have met, that the police must have taken care of the steps that they need to before we even worry about some of the facts of a case, whether our client had a high BAC or low BAC or anything like that. We look at if the police did everything they need to do. So we look primarily at the stop, and the police, before they pull anyone over, need to have reasonable suspicion that some sort of crime's already occurring before they pull you over. Then, before they proceed to the next step of field sobriety test, they need probable cause to believe that you're DUI. Then we break down the stop itself, or the test that you go through, and make sure that every single test was performed exactly according to standards. Because if they're not, that doesn't give probable cause for the next step in the case, which is the chemical test. That's the blood test or the breath test. And then we break down the breath or the blood test to see if that was administered correctly, whether there might have been any deficiencies in the machine. And we often get a retest. If it's a blood test, we'll get that retested from our own private lab to see if we think that's accurate. And so all of those steps along the way and the different standards of proof that must be shown will break down. And in order to do that, we get a dash cam video, police report, video from the police station. And sometimes we have to get video from local businesses that might have an independent video. And so that's our goal. Our goal is to get the case dismissed. And sometimes the facts aren't there. Sometimes we can't get dismissed, and we end up negotiating for a best deal there. But more often than not, we'll find some piece of evidence that we can use to our advantage. And more often than not, that involves a deficiency in probable cause or reasonable suspicion or a bad stop, that type of thing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. So, at least from your perspective, you're looking for any little thing that the courts would be obligated to toss it out initially, and I think that's a great approach. What kind of advice would you give somebody on their side if you're looking for those kinds of things on the police and the court side? What should a person be aware of even before they happen to go out for an evening, or if they happen to get stopped? Is there any advice you could give someone in advance?
There's several pieces of advice. I think that obviously we'd advise people to be careful, not to drink and to drive. But if they get pulled over, to be limited in what they say, not to discuss with the officers anything you may or may not have done. You know, a lot of times the officers will be friendly to clients or to people pulled over. And so our clients will feel like they need to reciprocate the friendliness and admit to drinking a little bit. Say, yeah, I've had 2 drinks or 1 drink. But even that type of admission, even though it's a small share, and it ends up hurting you in the long run. So there's no reason to speak. Be polite, give your name, address, but don't volunteer information. You don't have to answer questions, and don't do the field sobriety test. But the next piece of evidence we'd say, or the next piece of advice I'd give, is to call an attorney that specializes in DUI law. The individual being pulled over for DUI isn't going to know each of the standards of proof that I just brought up in terms of whether a stop is good or bad or whether it's probable cause. It's taken years of training for us. It's taken doing almost exclusively DUI law. And because of both prosecuting DUI law, which I used to do, defending cases, training, we've got to a point where we know what to look for. And so we don't think that we're smarter than our clients, but we know that it's just not possible to know all of this information by researching the internet. And I would call an attorney immediately if they were being pulled over for DUI.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. And the fact that you used to prosecute these kind of cases is got to play a lot of weight to have someone like you on their side. So knowing that and all the complications that you've just mentioned, it would behoove someone to immediately give you a call. Now, if somebody calls your office in Salt Lake City, are they obligated in any way to hire you or pay a fee as an initial consultation?
No, not at all. We discuss and meet with our clients on a free basis, an initial consultation that's always free, so that we have a very good idea of what's going on in the case. We can know exactly where the case will have to go, and we can advise you of that. So you know what you're getting, you're comfortable with us, we are comfortable with you and your case, and all of those decisions are made before we ever charge anything. We want you to feel comfortable with that we are your best representation, and we want to know that we can help you out before we ever ask for a fee of any sort.
Well, Joseph, that makes complete sense, and thank you for taking a few minutes out of your busy schedule to share with us some of these tips. I hope the viewers today will take these to heart, and if they have any questions or need legal representation in the future, that they'll reach out to you. Again, we've had Joseph Young of the law firm Covey & Young in Salt Lake City, the leading authority on DUI and personal injury in Utah, on our program this morning. Thank you, Joseph, for joining us. And I'm going to put their phone number on the screen here. You can see their phone number is 801-251-6869. Would encourage you to call that. If you have any questions whatsoever, these guys are on call 24/7, or you can visit their website at www.coveyyoung.com. Again, this is Marty Collins with the Local Business Report, signing off until next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty.